My name's Hayley Zynstra, and I'm a Customer Success Manager here with eSkilled, and I'll be your webinar host for today. And in case you have not used GoToWebinar before, which is the platform we're working in today, or if you haven't joined us in our webinar series before, but you've used different platforms, of course, you do have the ability to ask a question. You can find that in the top right corner of your screen. You should see the little question mark speech bubble there. You want to just give that a click and it will expand a little panel on the right hand side of your page. And then if you direct your eyes to the very bottom right hand corner of your screen, that's where you can now see the text box to enter your question. So if you do have any questions as we go through today, please feel free to shoot them through. And depending on the question itself and when I see it, I'll try and answer as I go. Otherwise, if they do come in a bit fast or if they are very specific questions, we'll follow up with you after the session to answer those directly. Wonderful. All right. So in terms of the session contents that we'll be aiming to cover off a little more specifically, we'll be covering what you can automate, just a bit of a basic introduction to automations in case they are completely new to you. There's also been some changes to the user interface. So if you are someone who's already familiar with automations and you're already using them, then I'll also be highlighting a few things that have changed. And other than things looking a bit different, there's also some new functionality for automations, so they can do a little bit more. So I'll, of course, be touching on all of those new features as well. We are building you also a suite of automation templates to get you started. So I'll be showcasing those and how you can enable them or turn them on, and then how you can customize them as well to better suit your own policies and procedures. So that's a little flavor of what we'll be going through in the course of today. So we'll start off with what can actually be automated. In case you weren't aware, there's sort of 4 key areas that automations allow you to automate. So of course, we've got emails, we've got tasks, SMS text messages, and reports. And you'll notice there too, there is additional charges that apply for SMS text messaging. So if that is something that could be of interest to you, there's a little link on that slide, or you can just reach out and let us know if you'd like some more information on that. But yeah, those are the 4 key areas where you can implement automations in eSkilled. And if we go over to the next slide, in terms of emails, really, it's about having no more manual sending or reducing the manual sending that you need to do. And I actually have a little poll question here because I'm curious if people are already using them or maybe still thinking about it. So I'll pop that up and let's just see. I'm curious to know, do you already have automation emails set up? Oh, cool. Looks like so far people may be already using automation emails. Oh yeah, okay, a few people know, so that's good. It will be interesting information for everyone irrespective. So thank you for everyone participating in the poll there. Oh, it's evened out, an even race. Some people using plenty, some people having just a couple, and a few people also not using them yet. So I'll end the poll there and just let everybody have a little look at that. And then I'll close that poll down as well so we can return back to the slides. But yeah, realistically with email automations, you want to take away manual sending. The other benefit is, of course, using templates. You'll be able to have a more consistent user experience because everybody's getting the same message. You're not drafting it differently for each user. And you can also set up automations for specific scenarios. So you might have a different message that goes to students who missed attending a class versus students who did actually go to the session and might be asking them for feedback versus, sorry, we missed you, for those who didn't attend. All right, on to the next one. The other thing that can be automated in the system is tasks. And these are really great for those steps that require a human touch. So if you're checking eligibility or verifying documents where there is an element of a human needs to look at that or do that, those steps are commonly in pre-enrollment or kind of at the end when you're certificate issuing. And tasks can have checklists attached to them too, and that can also help prevent anything from being missed. You actually can't complete a task successfully if you still have outstanding checklist items, so it really does make sure that nothing can be missed. And again, gives you a bit of visibility on where the team stands as well, because you can see what's on the to-do list either for that day and potentially things that are becoming overdue as well. Next, we've got automations for SMS text messaging, and that can be really handy just for time-sensitive messages or ones that really do need attention. So if there's anything really critical that you think could benefit from having a text message sent, that is an option that you can use through eSkilled. Everyone's usually glued to their phones these days, so if they're not doing a good job of staying on top of emails, usually people will see something that comes through on the phone. And then finally, we've also got automation options for reports as well. Now they can be really useful if email notifications would be overload. If you get a new email notification for every new enrollment, that might give you 50 emails a day to look through. It might be too much. You might want to prefer a report that gets sent through to you for new enrollments so that you can see just what students are enrolling in that day in a report style. One email will have a list of all 50 that came in through that day. So just another alternative way to sort of receive those automation messages. But yeah, those are the 4 things that can be automated through the eSkilled system. So if you haven't already had a little look at that, that gives you a little flavour of what we can work with. Next, we sort of want to consider who's going to receive these automations. So let's dive into that a little more. And they can be configured for both internal staff, so your admin team, any trainers, finance team, but you can also send them to external parties as well. So that would be more so your students, maybe companies that you're working with, or employers, other third parties like agents, other RTOs, so on and so forth. So if we break it down, you can see on the right-hand side there's a little diagram, and each automation can be configured for different users, I suppose. So SMS text messaging and emails, they're the most widely used one because that's obviously a communication tool. You want to be able to communicate with both internal and external people, so you can send them to virtually anybody. So students, trainers, admin staff, org units, we'll look at that shortly if that's something that's new to you, and companies as well. Tasks and reports more so used as a tool for your staff, more of an internal tool. So tasks are available to admin staff, trainers, org units, and company contacts. You might want to have employers or other third parties help with some tasks, but yeah, realistically, probably more or less used by internal staff. And then reports, yeah, more so a tool for your team. So you're not automating those to go out to willy-nilly to anybody, because they do have obviously potentially some sensitive data in them as well. So you want them to be going to your internal teams. Alrighty. I talked about org units there, and so if that's not something you're familiar with, we'll be going into detail on that because it'll be sort of the first thing we set up with respect to managing automations. So as a concept, organizational units or org units are splitting up your team, I guess, into departments or different roles and how you organize and split up tasks and responsibilities. And by doing that, it helps you streamline operations and assigning work to people. And yeah, it's really the first step to utilizing automations really intelligently. As a bit more of an example to expand on that, yeah, you want to think about it like departments or teams that help you organize who is actually going to be doing what. So just as a basic concept, you might have a structure where you've got, say, a management team, and you've got different departments that sit under that: human resources, finance, student services, training department. And under each of those, there may even be further divisions that sit underneath. So within your finance team, you might have different teams of people or individuals that are looking after, say, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and payroll, all sort of connected under the umbrella of finance, but slightly separate in terms of actual tasks that those people or teams would be responsible for. And if we look at that in a student services sort of world, maybe you've got people looking after specifically just admissions and getting students through the pre-enrollment phase. You might have student support for ongoing students, and maybe particular people who manage work placement coordination. So all under that umbrella again, but slightly different focus for each of those. So when we talk about organizational units, it's just splitting up into different divisions or teams so that you can allocate those automations to go to the right people. So let's look at how you do that in the system. So we'll go through and do that together. I'll just swap my screen over to the live system. So for org units, you want to come through to administration menu on the left here, and then dive into settings once you've expanded that. And it's one of the very first, well, it's not the very first, but it's at the top of the page here in the menu items. So you'll go for organizational units there. Now, we should have some pre-configured ones that are set up ready to use, and they may be hiding with this show inactive toggle. Currently, we're just seeing the active ones that have the check indicating that they're alive and well in the system. But if we toggle that on to show our inactive ones, you'll see that there are some here that have the red cross next to them. They're sort of in hibernation, so to speak, or inactive. So they're not available at the minute. And that's where you should have some default ones that are sitting there ready for you to use or adjust so that they actually match how your organization is structured. So if we open one of these existing ones, I might go for this admissions one maybe. Maybe the one that's alive is a better example. So we can click the action button to edit the details there. So the first thing you might want to review is the title or the description. This one's called admissions. Maybe that's not exactly what you would like to label it as, so feel free to change that to something that better suits the descriptions that split up your teams into their organizational units. Once you've got your description, you've got the option here to assign a role or users. So roles are linked to the permissions in the system. So there's those default permissions that we configure for you when you first get started. So your admin users, your trainer users, you've got also compliance, finance, student admin, I think. Those 5 are the default ones. It's also possible for you to create your own roles as well and give them a bespoke suite of permissions and access to various parts of the system. If that's not something you're familiar with, I'll just take a little step backwards because that's also available here in the settings page. If you have a look at the last menu item here for permissions, this is where we can see the different roles available in the system. So admin, trainer, compliance, finance, and student admin being your default ones. And then you can also toggle what those users are actually able to access in that system. So through all the menu items, you can kind of control whether they have viewing permission, ability to add new entries, update the existing entries, or delete entries that are recorded in the system. So when we talk about org units, if I go back to our org units, you might want to link them to permissions. So you might say, cool, anybody who is a trainer, they should be part of the training team. Or in this case, anyone who is a student admin sort of a role, they can be part of the admissions team. So anybody in the system who is allocated that student admin role, they're going to automatically be included in this org unit. If that doesn't work for you, you might want to be more specific. You might not want everybody who's a student admin to be part of admissions if you've broken yours down quite minutely so that there are separations between admissions and ongoing and work placement, which I had in my example there. You might prefer to remove roles and actually go for allocating specific users. So you can sort of say like, okay, yes, I want Hayley to be part of that team. I want whoever else you want from the list to sort of go into that organizational unit. So the other reason you might want to use individual users could be oversight from, say, managers or people from different teams. You might say, yeah, that's fine. Everyone who is student admin would be considered a part of the admissions org unit, but we also want our big boss to have visibility over that. So you might put maybe the training manager onto that too, so they can also see how many new students are coming in or something along those lines. So it can be useful to add users who maybe don't have this exact role as well. That's pretty much it there on the org units, and that's something that you'd want to configure just from the start, because these are going to be connected to who is receiving our automations. Alrighty, let's send our screen back to the, oh no, slides. Sorry about that. Okay, so we've sort of covered everything on this slide through going through the system. You're going to come into administration settings, go to org units. You want to toggle to show your inactive ones and see the template ones that are set up, and just make sure you got the right roles and the right people assigned to each of those. All right. Now I mentioned that there's been a bit of a change in the user interface for automations. So it's got a bit of a new look if it's been a while since you were having a look in there. And just to go through briefly, essentially it's mostly the navigation and the buttons that have changed. So the add button, the old look was that there was a button saying new or a button to say add, and that's been changed now. So it's a little plus icon. Same for editing, you had the action button, but nowadays it's just going to be what we call the kebab icon, the three little dots stacked up vertically on top of each other there. There's also a new function here to export a list of all your automations that previously was not available, but that's just going to be the little download button that you see there. The other thing that has changed with the user interface as well, previously when you were looking at like a library or a list of what automations you do have in the system, it was a drop-down box that you could scroll down, but we've changed that now to be a table style list. So you'll see a list of all the automations when you open the automation menu. And I think this is the last one finally, sort of along with changing it from the old drop-down menu box where you were a bit restricted with filtering and searching because it was really only type to search or scrolling through a long list in that drop-down menu. We've introduced inline filters so you can easily find and search for exactly what you're looking for. Excellent. Well, before I introduce new automation functions, let's just have a little look-see. Maybe dragging it this way is a better way to go. what does that interface stuff look like in the real world, because seeing little screen grabs is maybe not always the best way to understand what's changed. So if we come into our administration menu, that's where we've got automation as well. And this is what it's looking like once you've got it all on a screen together. So the little add button here in the top left of the table itself, and the little kebab icon where you can click on that to see the edit, delete, duplicate functions. If you're using the search filters, you want to just click the button first to activate them and they'll pop up. If you want to close them, they don't take too much space on the screen, but they do take up a little extra line there. You can just close to remove. Maybe I need to select one first. You can also search, like let's say I just wanted to see my task automations, so I can filter by task so that I'm only looking at the task ones. Of course, type to search is still there with the search bar as well. So it just gives it a little bit more easy use through the system there. And I mentioned that download button too. So you're able to download or export a list in an Excel spreadsheet of what are all your different automations that are in the system there. All right, well, that's the user interface. So it's not too dramatically different, but hopefully just streamlines it a little bit as you're working through it. Well, let's go through the exciting new functions that have been introduced as well. So there's 7 sort of main areas that I'll be touching on, and I'll go into more detail on each of these, but we've got a new concept for category selection. We've also introduced invoicing automations, so that's a new category in itself. Categories and how they interact with email templates will be important to understand, so I'll go over that. We've got a new recipient type, so how you figure out who you're sending a automation to, especially when it's related to compliance items. Got a few new date trigger options, a new period for how soon you can send out an automation. So we've got a new immediate sending period, and we've also got a few new condition variables too. So I'll go through these a little more in detail one at a time. Let's start with category selection. This was not previously something you needed to do when you are setting up an automation, but you will need to use this going forward. So basically, when you're creating an automation, you'll have a drop-down menu and it's asking you to assign a category. So all of these categories, except for the invoice one, they were already sort of a concept, or there was already the ability to create automations that were relating to all of those categories. So, you could create one related to student enrollments, or you could create one related to complaints. The only one that's brand new, as I mentioned, would be invoices. In conjunction with that category, that's where it's going to be really important that you've got your categories assigned on your email templates as well, because they will work together. So if your automation category is complaints, like I've got in that little screen grab there, you're going to want to make sure that your email templates have also been tagged under the complaints type or category. That is going to be important, because if they are not correctly tagged, they're actually not going to show up in the drop-down list here as an eligible template to use when you're setting up those email automations. Now, let's sort of look at how that applies practically when we're looking at setting up an automation. So let's start with maybe the email templates, because that's probably where you want to go first. So again, in administration under templates, and you've got just the second menu item at the top of the page there for emails. That's your library of email templates. And as you've created them, if we edit one that's already available here, you'll notice the drop-down field here for email type. And this one I happened to open because it was top of the list, is tagged as an appeals email. And when we're just focusing on email templates itself, the only thing the type really impacts here is what dynamic fields you've got available to use when you're drafting the contents of that email. I think that's been expanded recently too, so that there's more detailed appeals and compliance fields in there. And then you've got fields that could relate to any email you draft. So usually your org details that are, you might want to include that in a signature on any email that you send out of the system. They're not specific to a particular type of email that you're drafting. But this is where it's going to be really important that you've assigned the right type. Is there maybe an enrollment one here? Yep, let's have a little look at one of those as well. And again, all you really notice in terms of the template editor is that it will have different dynamic fields. So you've got a few more available for you when you're drafting an email that is relating to enrollments. You can pick up your custom fields if you've got the maximize subscription, and that's something that you've got open. Group information, student information is relevant for enrollment emails as well. So just to tie that through to automations, let's jump onto automation and let's go and add a new one as a concept. Let's say, yes, it is going to be an email. This is where our category becomes really important. If I've said appeals, that's great. I now want to know what email templates can I have? Just the appeals ones. There's only 2 available to me that have been tagged as appeal. But if I'm changing that, let's say I want to add a new one. This time, let's say my email is going to be enrollment related. I'm expecting my drop-down list should have a fair few more. Yes, it does, because there was lots of emails drafted in there for our enrollment category. So I just wanted to make that connection really clear, because that's a new concept that's introduced with the changes. So category is important. It's not just arbitrary. You can't just pick whatever you want, and make sure that you've tagged your emails accordingly so that they're going to show up as available when you're doing your automations too. All right, that's sort of covered off our first 3 items. The other thing that is new is specific to emails or automations that you're creating in relation to any compliance related items. So that would be complaints, like I've gotten that screen grab there, but that could also be appeals, continuous improvement, industry engagement, or trainer matrix. So for all of those compliance E1s, there's a new option to select which user is going to be receiving that automation and who you want that to send to. So that might be whoever is reviewing or approving or creating that particular compliance item. And this is just going to allow you to be really targeted in who is actually receiving automations, so that they're going to a fixed individual who's actually working on that item, instead of being more general and saying, oh yes, we'll send that to anybody who is a manager or anybody who's in that organizational unit. So you can be a bit more specific with it that way. Again, let's go into the system and have a little look, because I know a screen grab doesn't always fully comprehend what you're wanting to do. So with that one, you want to make sure your category is any of those compliance related ones that I mentioned. So appeals, complaints, continuous improvement. Let's go for that one for our example. And now when we look in recipient type, this is going to have a new option. So we've always had individual staff member, we've always had org unit, but what is new is this continuous improvement users. So it's saying continuous improvement users because my category selected here was continuous improvement. If I was drafting a new automation and let's say I'd actually gone for appeals, when I look in recipient type, it's got appeals users. So it's relating itself back to that category that you've selected. Once you've selected that option, that's where you'll see the send to. And this is specific to an appeal. It's now wanting to send it either to the assessor that appeal is in relation to, or the user who created that appeal. So ideally the students created that appeal because they disagree. So you'll see sort of similar concepts there. If we go back actually and change that to continuous improvement again, then you can see it's cleared out my recipient type because you can't be an appeals user if the category is continuous improvement. So we'll go select continuous improvement users, and you've got either who's reviewed that continuous improvement item, who approved it, or who created it. And that might not be a student in that case. Maybe a staff member has raised a continuous improvement item. So yeah, just a more targeted way to identify who actually needs to receive that email in this case for the automation, because it's connected to the person who's been assigned. All right, so I think we're just a couple more new things to cover off. We got some new date trigger options. Most of them are in relation to those compliance items and having more date records to go on. But we've also got now the invoicing functions, so you can trigger a automation based on invoice dates. You can also find the last login of that user and trigger a automation to send to them, let's say 30 days since their last login, or enrollment and unit expiration. So as long as you've set that up on the program instance that a enrollment or a unit would have an expiry period, you can trigger an automation on those now. So where we're looking for those date options and these status or outcome changes is once you've configured the details of the automation and you're telling it when to automate and trigger that out. So the other new thing here, as well as these new date options, is actually the concept of triggering the automation when there is a change. So we don't know when that change is going to happen. There's no date that we know it's going to be occurring, but whenever that compliance status is changed, whenever an enrollment status is changed, so if someone moves from application received to application approved, for example, or a unit outcome change, so maybe not yet started going to a continuing activity. So you'll be able to use those as a trigger point. And let's have a little look at where that actually is done. So we sort of did the details before. It's now when you move down the page here to the automate when section. Let's click the add button to add our date trigger. And this is where we now will see more dates for anything that's a compliance related item like continuous improvement. Previously it was just received available, but now you've got options to automate based on follow-up date, expected completion, date completed, the date it was added, status change as well. So if we look at specifically added date and status change, this is where we can see the new period as well. So I mentioned that you could send immediately. So that's where we've got the immediate action there too. So that is only applicable to those two specific categories. So anything that's a status change and anything that is an added date. So we'll see the immediate option in there. But if I was to use, say, date completed, we don't have immediate as an option for that one. It's just days, weeks, or months. And that's worth visiting too, because there's probably important to highlight what the exact definition of immediate is. So it actually runs every 5 minutes on the 5-minute mark. So it would be, say, 11, 11:05, 11:10, 11:15. So every 5 minutes on the 5 minutes, that's when the system's going to be checking, has there been any complaints added into the system? And if there has, say one's been added at 11:01, then 4 minutes later at 11:05, that's when that immediate email will be sent out. So just good to be really clear about the exact definition of immediate, because it's going to depend on that 5-minute period passing through. And I think we've just got one more to cover off here in terms of new functionalities. So we've got new condition variables too. So 3 new ones there. You'll be able to trigger a automation condition for enrollment status type. This is helpful if you wanted to identify anyone who's in pre-enrollment. You can do that easily with one condition instead of having to select everyone who is application received, application approved, pending commencement. You have to select 3 or 4 different statuses to target anyone in that broader pre-enrollment category. So we've opened that up as a condition option to make that a little more simple. You've got contract state as well. So if you've got any funded contracts, you'll be able to set up automations specifically only for enrollments that have a associated contract state. And compliance condition being blank is the final one there. So for example, on that screen grab, complaint is investigated by, but it's blank. So no one's investigated it yet. That might be an issue that you want to automate that sort of a reminder or email to go out to make sure that someone is allocated to do that investigation. So that's why is blank has been introduced there as well. So that's everything that's new in terms of functionalities. And if that felt like a lot, it is a lot. So be gentle on yourselves. And this is where you can start to get very excited, because coming next week, we're going to have automation templates available for you in your accounts. So yeah, like I mentioned, that was a lot to go through with what's new. And a lot to consider about how you might absorb that and implement that for yourselves and build your own automations with all those new spiffy little rules. But the idea with these automation templates is to remove the burden of work in setting up at least the bulk of the automation rules. So we'll have templates available for all the major milestones and commonly required workflows. And those pre-configured automation templates will be there waiting for you in your library just to turn on and then to finesse and edit so that you can make them really aligned with your own policies and procedures. So I've got a few slides just to give a bit of an overview, and then we'll go into the system and have a look at what those will be looking like once they have been uploaded into everybody's accounts. But yeah, I really should have pulled this slide up, not the title slide, while I was explaining that. Basically, your library is going to be filled up with lots of different automations, and yeah, we'll be able to customize and turn those on with you or for you as you go. So what are those automations going to cover? So there'll be lots for pre-enrollment and admissions, automations for new enrollments, for students who need LLN assistance, new enrollment application tasks. So for funded training or cry costs, even your domestic students, things that you need to follow up and check off a list to make sure that you've got those done. And of course, if getting email notifications for all of that sounds scary, like you'll be flooded with emails, you can instead opt for the reports so that you're getting just a streamlined spreadsheets sent to you once a day, once a week, with those sorts of details included inside it. We'll have invoicing automations on there as well. So you can automate tasks for your finance team to follow up unpaid invoices. So they're going to know to get on the phone and harass late payers. But hopefully with email reminders, that'll help alleviate the need to do that So sending reminders before the due date and maybe doubling down with escalating some reminders if it's got overdue as well. There'll be ones for chasing up USIs that might be invalid or blank. So reminders to students at various points that you can enable so that, yeah, they're definitely getting that to hopefully at some point through their study journey. All right, we'll have automation set up for no login so that you're aware when students are not logging in so that they get a reminder to prompt them, oh yeah, I really haven't logged in for a little while, but so that trainers and companies or employers can also chase up students if there are other people who might be able to give them a poke as well. There'll be automations for progress. So as end dates are coming up, time is running out, to help motivate students to get in there and submit, and act as a reminder to anyone else that might need to be aware that students are running out of time to get things done as well. And based on attendance and events, there'll be automations to activate too. So like a reminder to come to class if you've got classroom-based training or training where they have to be somewhere at a set date and time. You might want to remind your trainers about that too. So that'll be something that you could activate, and attendance reports, of course, as well. So people know overall, are people actually meeting those attendance requirements? There'll be automations for everything and anything compliance related. So industry engagement, trainer matrix, appeals complaints, continuous improvement. There'll be notifications when things are up for review, tasks with a step-by-step checklist for investigating a complaint, anything that you want, you could build that in and activate that. Probably what you want to review too is what period those are sent. You can see these have like 6 weeks, 2 weeks when they're expired. You might want reminders much earlier than that, so you've got more time to get on top of them. You might not need as many reminders, so you might only want to activate 1 or 2. It'll be up to you what you ultimately turn on, but there'll be a template there for all of those items. And then finally, there'll be templates for issuing certificates and templates for certificate currency as well. So if you're doing something like first aid and CPR where there is an industry requirement to come back and do some refresher training to keep that certificate valid, then there'll be templates in there to automate those reminders. And same for withdrawn or cancelled students, automation templates so that as soon as you allocate that status, it's going to trigger something to go out and let students know that's been finalized and closed off. Maybe third parties who need to be aware of those changes to their progress as well. So a lot, there'll be lots in there, I promise you. Now, they're not in there yet, but maybe when you get this recording back and they're in your account next week, you'll want to come back to this part here on how to enable them, because they're going to be disabled as a default because we don't know if you want to use them, and you probably want to make some changes to them as well before you actually send them to be alive and sending out to everybody. So let's go through how you would do that together on the live screen as well. So ultimately, you'll want to come back to exactly where we are. So coming to administration and automation. I'm just going to close this example one I had up. And again, you're going to want to make sure you know about this toggle to show inactive, because they're going to be in the inactive position. So if I turn that on, what we should see at the bottom of the table is I am now seeing 8 whole pages of automations that are in this account. But for the ones that are actually turned on and active, we've only got 2 pages of them. So this is, you always might be blank if you haven't got any automations when you come in here. So you'll just want to immediately turn that on so that you can see any that are in the deactivated position. Most of them they should have a description to help you understand what is it actually doing. And then based on that description, if that sounds like a rule that you'd like to turn on, you'll just want to use your little edit kebab icon to click on that and edit the details. What's this first one? Invoice is due today. Email sent to student whose company related on invoice due date. Yep, that might be one. Is there a more interesting one? Well, we'll just go with that. So we'll click on edit. I got the slow account for testing. Come on, there you go. So all set up and ready. So it's got the description, it's been categorized as invoice, the template is there. That's the other thing you're going to want to consider is, hey, there's an email template here. Does that say what I want it to actually say when it goes out to the student? So almost hand in hand, you might want to open up in a new browser your templates. Go to your email templates. You'll want to look for that one. So this is called invoice due today, immediate payment required. Let's have a search for required. This one here. What does it actually say? What are we sending out to that student? Are you happy with what this says? Does it have your email signature attached? Do you want to change the wording? All of this is what you'll want to review before you activate any of those templates that we are providing for you there. But they should be at the crux appropriate for what that message is saying. But yeah, go in and make your tweaks and changes so that it really reflects your voice. And then the other thing you might want to consider is, when are you sending it? Are you happy with when that's going? This is going on the day that it's due. So maybe we actually want to get ahead of the game and send it one day before. So you can come in and change that and say, okay, well, rather than being the day after it's been due, I want it to go one day before the due date, so that they're getting that, one day before, so they can pay it the next day when it will truly be due. And you can see there's a condition on this one too. It's only sending if the invoice is not yet paid, which makes sense. You don't want to send a reminder to people who've already paid their invoices. So you'll just want to go through those templates that are available and make your decision if the template makes sense, if the sending period makes sense, and you're satisfied with what it's doing. Now we've got a back button here. This is also new. That's going to take us back to our library list and to the table page. So again, it's lost my memory that I wanted to show the inactive one, so I'll just toggle that on again. Oh, I went through all that and I didn't save the the status. That was the most important part. Sorry, everybody. So for editing that one, we've made our review and we are actually satisfied with everything that it's doing. Then there is also a toggle on the automation itself here. You can see it's got that little warning that is inactive. We want to change it to active and then save. So if you're happy with it, how it's built, you don't want to make any changes, that's all you have to do. Come in here, toggle it into the on position so that it will be activated in your account. And I think that is pretty much it for in terms of enabling them. So yes, there's a slide there with a little step-by-step, which is good because I almost forgot to show you how to do it. And then, yeah, in terms of editing and customizing, I've already spoken to this slide as I was going through there, but please do review all those automation templates closely. Make sure that they do align with your own internal policies and procedures, and configure those org units as well. That's another thing to highlight, which I think we could go back and have a little look at here. Depending on who the recipient type is, let's see who's got an org unit. Might need the inactive ones. So we talked about this right at the very beginning. when you've got the org unit assigned, we want to make sure that the right people are in that. So this one has the compliance manager org unit would be managing continuous improvement feedback. That might be fine, but you need to make sure that your compliance manager org unit has either some people with that role who are actually going to be receiving those emails and tasks, or you want to assign your individual users to that org unit so that they are going to the right people. So to bring that full circle, we could go and have a little look in settings and organizational units again. This is our compliance manager one. So any user who has the role of compliance would be getting those automation emails when we turn that one on. That might make sense, but you might want to add some people in there. You might want yourself, a manager, training manager, somebody else to be aware, so you can add your specific users in there too. Or conversely, maybe you just don't want everybody in compliance to get them. You might want to turn that off and be actually very specific about which users are part of that org unit and eligible to get those automations. That's why I started off with that one, because configuring that first can make it a lot easier when you go back down to enabling any of those automations. If you've already got those org units set up, then you know with confidence that they're going to be triggering to the right people that are receiving those. What's coming next? So next week, you'll get those templates available in your own accounts. And we do have one more stage of releases to come. And in that stage 4 release, it's going to be a range between option. So the specific example there would be a range of attendance. Anyone whose attendance percentage range is from 85 to 89%. And bit of a very specific use case there, but it will really assist with visibility for attendance, specifically for crash course training where they've got quite strict attendance percentage rates that need to be maintained. But that'll be applicable for attendance for any students. So if you're curious for people who are falling into a low band on their attendance rates, that's when that will be coming soon as well. So keep your eyes out for that one. But thank you very much for attention today. I've had my eye on the chat box. I haven't seen anything really come through. So if you do think of some questions after the session today, don't hesitate to shoot them through. You'll get the summary email as well, so feel free to disseminate that if there's anyone who in your team would benefit from watching this or wasn't able to attend today, feel free to share that around. And if you do have a moment to fill in the feedback survey when you get that summary email, that would be great as well, just so we can know how our webinars are going. There is one coming up next week as well, which is on the Smart Enroll forms. If you're not already swapped over and using Smart Enroll, that'd be a great one to come to. Eventually, by the end of the year, we will be phasing out the standard enrollment forms and everybody will need to be using Smart Enroll. So if it's not on your radar, definitely come along and just learn a little bit more about that and get worded up on what that looks like. And I'll just leave us on this one. So if you do have any questions that have popped into mind today, yeah, don't hesitate to contact us and shoot those through. Or pop them here in the chat box and I'll be happy to answer those. I'll stick around for another minute or two in case there's anyone who's furiously typing, hoping that they can put that through before I finish up. But yeah, thank you everybody for attending. That winds up today's webinar and hopefully that was really informative and you're all looking forward to next week when you get to go in there and review all those automation templates and turn them on. And if you do want to get creative, all of the new functions are in there, so you can start building from scratch for yourself. So if you at least want to have a little look and a play, go for it. Most of those, except for that last stage 4 percentage-based one, are all available in the automation functionality right now as I speak. But yeah, thank you everyone. Take care. I'll wind it up just now, and yeah, any questions, do feel free to shoot them through and we'll be happy to answer those.